Let's date forever. Here's your weekly dose of relationship fuel with Sammy and Nathan Yeager. Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about how a life-changing asteroid can hit you and your relationship at any time, learning how to receive and not just give, dating at home without a disposable income, connecting with our inner child to keep play and love alive, how our physical appearance can impact your relationship with yourself, and using our mindset to attract more of what we desire. But before we dive into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
Oh my gosh, it has been such a big week.
Monster, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think that we should probably do an entire episode on our Unleash the Power Within Tony Robbins experience.
Yeah.
Because what did we do, babe?
We walked on fire.
We did. We walked on fire. And that really fueled me up. But I think I'll save talking about that for that dedicated episode.
Yeah, and smash some limiting beliefs.
But what also fueled me up was a very, very last minute impromptu set of plane tickets to fly to South Australia and be at a friend's wedding that I previously didn't think I was going to be able to attend. So that really, really fueled me up. And I'm so grateful that I was able to make it and be there and watch two people that love each other celebrate that love. And it was, I love that so much. So that really fueled me up. And then because I'm in Little Adelaide, I've got to spend some quality time with some really important people, which has been beautiful and very, very refueling. What about you, Nath?
Yeah, mine was basically those two things as well. So, going to this wedding. So the wedding was for one of my groomsmen. So it was really nice to be able to go and attend his wedding with his beautiful now wife. But also the other thing was also visiting some friends and family. So both my grandparents just recently moved into a home. So really nice to go and visit them in their new environment and, spend some really quality time with them. So that really fueled me up.
Yeah, moving into that aged care facility transition is a big change of life, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. But it was really nice to see that they're doing really well there. So that's, really as much as we can ask for.
Living their new fueled up life.
That's it, yeah. But now let's jump into this week's app.
Today we've got Chantal Gandelman joining us. She's an NLP certified mindset coach with a background in social media marketing. 3 years ago, she was diagnosed with cancer, and then she went on to close her business and dedicate her life to healing physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Throughout this experience, she started supporting other women to navigate seasons of uncertainty. As a coach, she works with the subconscious mind to create change from a deep level. She's been dating her partner for 9 years, and their relationship grew even closer throughout Chantal's cancer experience. Welcome to the show, Chantal.
Thank you. Hi, you guys.
Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have you here.
Excited to be here.
So, like a lot of people, you've experienced a atomic bomb or a crossroad moment or the morbid thing that happens to someone else happened in your life.
100%.
Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Oh my God. Okay. So my now husband and I were living at my parents' house in LA. When he graduated college, he went to the Army first. It took him a while to finish. And we decided to move to Arizona when he got a job offer here. We fell in love with it. It was like perfect fairy tale. 6 months in, COVID hit. So that was kind of like just I guess everyone went through it. But that was pretty wild. Prevented us from really experiencing this new city and going out and meeting people, right? And then 6 months after that, I got diagnosed with cancer. And so we decided to leave the city that we loved. It was still COVID. We moved back to my family's house in LA. And from there, it was just like biopsy, diagnosis, treatment, keep going. And so at that time, I was still doing social media management for doctors and women in wellness and medicine. And I kind of rounded that out after 2 cycles of chemo. And I said, look, I'm just needing time for myself, need time to just kind of pull back, fully focus on my health. And I'm so lucky, obviously, that I was able to do that, pre-kids, pre-having to pay a mortgage, all of these big responsibilities. And so we got that through that together. And as I was healing and as I was going through, there was obviously treatment, and I knew that I was really lucky. My doctors were telling me, there's a 90% efficacy rate of this chemo. We don't know why it works, but it does. And I was like, okay, great. So this is going to take care of my body. But what's the reason that all of this dis-ease happened in the first place? Like, what can I do to take agency over my healing? And I had never really been big on energy, subconscious mind, maybe dabbled in personal development. But aside from that, I wasn't really, into the woo. And I was able to meet through referrals a hypnotherapist and an energy healer. And, I was a little bit apprehensive in the beginning, but both of them, who don't know each other at all, basically offered me this different explanation of what was going on with me. Instead of kind of like, you're screwed, tough luck, it's all up to luck, throw your hands in the air and just like sit back, this is going to be hard. It was kind of like, hey, we know that so I had a specific type of lymphoma. It was a blood cancer. So we know that this type of cancer is not genetic. We don't know exactly why it happens. But according to these two types of therapists, they were saying emotional dis-ease. And when the first person said that, I was like, okay, interesting. When the second person said that, I was kind of like, whoa, like what is it about this? Like, what can I learn from this? How can I adapt? How can I feel a little bit more confident in this journey? And I really do know that this is a testy topic. I know that a lot of people are like, what do you mean? So you manifested this, you brought this upon yourself. And I don't think there's like a cut and dry answer, but I do know that our reality is our belief system. And if I believe that this was a stroke of bad luck and my health is up to God knows what, and I have absolutely no say, I would have personally just felt down, defeated, not knowing how to spend my time, just not my best self.
Disempowered?
100%. And when these two told me that, I started learning about suppressed anger and things that like weren't even a big deal, not like big T trauma in my life, but things that I thought were normal and didn't pay much attention, like the girls that picked on me in middle school and I kind of suppressed things, or, when I thought parents wouldn't listen. And so I just didn't speak my mind. And then I felt angry at the result of that, how that relationship panned out. It gave me something to work with. And so I was working with the subconscious mind. I kept seeing signs and symbols of NLP everywhere, hanging on my hypnotherapist wall. My friends from Israel and other countries had gotten certified. And I was like, wait, what is this thing? And then finally I was watching somebody's stories, and she, in her group coaching program, she had brought an NLP expert. And now not only had I heard about it and I was interested, but here was somebody who could actually help me get certified. And so I spent my time over chemo getting certified.
So we mentioned in your bio that you're an NLP certified mindset coach. For someone who has never heard about NLP before, what is it?
Great question. So NLP just stands for neuro-linguistic programming, and it's the way we use language and our mental kind of pictures, the images, the information that we gather through our senses. Also works a lot with the subconscious mind. The program that I did also worked a lot with emotions. NLP can be used for so many things, but I use it towards healing. It's also great in sales, helping people with, phobias. For me, it was just it relieved such a burden that I had some tool to work with my limiting beliefs and just subconscious energetic patterns and my emotions. And so that's how I work with it with my clients. It's still really broad. I think when you see it kind of in action or you experience it for yourself, it paints a better picture. So that's what I did. I decided to start getting certified in the modalities that really made a difference for me. I felt more empowered. I noticed myself getting less reactive. We'll go into this later. Of course, my husband, then boyfriend and fiance, was a huge support system through this time. And pretty much where it went from there was I was really used to showing up on social media, sharing tips and tricks, how to grow your Instagram, how to generate engagement and all of these things. And then, when this hit and it was COVID and I was completely lonely and, it just wasn't a fun time, I was like, hey, at least I have a captive audience. I'm just going to share what my experience is like going through chemo and shaving my head and the emotions that come up and how I'm healing, and just having people, an audience to talk to, was game changing. And I later spoke with some people who had also been diagnosed at a young age. I was 29. And they said that they were extremely shameful and they hid and they were depressed and they didn't want to eat and they didn't want to talk to anybody. And looking back, this is maybe 10 years after the fact for them, they all said being isolated and feeling so shameful about what was going on didn't help, and it kind of prolonged their symptoms. And I guess from that point forward, I became the person that, I guess because I shared something really private that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about online, I was kind of the person that, especially in my community, my immediate like physical community, anytime somebody got sick or I had to freeze my eggs too, which was not fun. Anytime these kinds of things happened, I was the person that they came to, and I was an open book and I'd already shared everything. And so to just have people that I could help with my story, which for me, I was like, I'm already sharing this for free. Like the fact that this is making a difference in someone's life, that kind of set me on this path.
Yeah, amazing. So Chantal, I kind of want to go back to sort of the beginning of your journey. And you obviously mentioned that you were kind of in and around the medical industry, like working in social media and things like that. So when you first got diagnosed, like you obviously kind of went down that conventional pathway of like conventional medicine, but then what was it that made you want to explore other avenues of healing as opposed to just like kind of the Western medicine pathway?
Okay, so in the beginning, I was interviewing different doctors, interviewing different oncologists. And unfortunately, I was met with a few, even though they came really highly recommended, that maybe they're so experienced, they've been doing this for so long that I think maybe they forgot what it's like, that panic when a new patient going through this for the first time is just like, what do I do? A few of them were really, this is going to be tough. This is like going to war. Put your boots on. You're going to be strong, but it will be okay, but it'll be really hard. And just kept thinking to myself, like, why are they planting this idea that it's going to be so hard for me? I felt, not intentionally, but kind of like they were belittling me, or like, where are the people to uplift? And then in my personal experience, just through life, I had seen an integrative medicine doctor. So he did Eastern and Western, and I was kind of familiar with both. But when it came to the energy healers and the hypnotherapists, that just became like, hey, I'm open to absolutely anything. And these were the referrals that came. And actually, now that I'm remembering, I wanted to avoid chemo because I was terrified of losing my hair. I was like, poke me, prod me, do whatever. But I'm so terrified that once I look sick or I look different, that I'm going to be treated different or pitied, and I just didn't want that experience. So in the beginning, it was kind of a like aesthetic thing. Like I didn't want to see myself looking the way sometimes I saw other people, like walking in the hospitals or in and out of doctors' offices. And I like felt bad for them. And I was like, oh my God, people are going to look at me this way.
This hits close to home for me because I also have a blood disorder that is very closely linked to some types of blood cancers, and there's a couple of indicators that it could go left or it could go right. And I got diagnosed by accident when we were trying to explore something else. But where I go to see my hematologist is in the cancer center. So a couple of times a year, I'm surrounded by people who are having a really shit time, and they look sick and they are battling cancer, or they're going through very challenging periods of time with their health. So I really resonate with that idea of like, I'm sitting in I'm in an environment often enough that I don't want to look that way. I don't want to go through that. I don't want to have the physical representation of being unwell.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting about how like our relationship with how we perceive ourselves, right? And how like attached I am to my physical appearance and all of those things. I think that's particularly like challenging. I mean, I'm going to particularly for a woman, right? Where there's a lot of currency in that, we've been groomed in a society that tells us that is where a lot of our value comes from. Mm-hmm. So I get why that would have been like, you can cut, you can inject, you can poke, you can prod, but please just let me not look sick.
Yeah, it's your identity. And it's actually was two things for me. One, my hair, I had long, curly, blonde hair that I dyed, but it was my favorite and I loved it and it was easy to work with. And I was like, wait, this is me. Like, this is this just curly hair that I flip from side to side and throw in a bun and do whatever. Like, that's my identity. And then I also love working out. I love lifting weights. And so, I had a decent amount of muscle on me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be so skinny. I'm going to be frail. And just those thoughts alone, exactly like what you said, it was like, how do I relate to myself when I look like it? Is this me? What am I? If it's not this exterior, I don't know, presentation, how I present myself in the world, then like, who am I? And I think until that point, I wasn't really asking those questions. I wasn't really invested in like the internal. It was like, what can I get? What friends can I have? What material things can I aim for? Where's my business going? It was a lot of like titles and things to give perceived, I don't know, abundance, health looking,
Status,
like all of the things,
significance,
100%.
ego.
So now I can look back and say it's really one of the best things that ever happened to me, and I'm so incredibly proud of how I handled it because I didn't think I had it in me. And I think when you
And you had doctors telling you it was going to be.
Oh my God, they were awful. Yeah. So anyway, how I started, even with the oncologist, I was trying to postpone chemo as long as possible because my brother was going to propose to his now wife, and it was going to be a party at our house. And the week before, when my doctors were like, no, like you should start ASAP, don't wait, it's fast growing. I was like, no, like I can't be bald at my brother's engagement at my own house. Like I can't be in the hospital when he's like, what do you mean? Like that's ridiculous. This is going to have to wait. And I remember my friend from Arizona came to visit me in LA, and I was like, guys, I'm going to have to go in soon. Like just come visit me, come spend time with me. And she did. And then that night I went to sleep, and so even though this is a blood cancer and I had to do chemo because any cell that's circulating in the body can manifest as new cancer cells, I had a tumor on my heart and lungs, and that was what was causing me a cough. That was my only symptom, and that's what was causing me discomfort. And that was growing. And so really the issue, aside from the cancer itself, was that this tumor was preventing me from breathing properly. And it was growing and growing. And so finally that night she came, to sleep over that night. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I like couldn't breathe and I was coughing. Every time I coughed, my lungs would, or every time I breathed, my lungs would inhale and it would push on the tumor, and the tumor has nowhere to go. So it's pushing back on my lungs and I'm just coughing. And then I went to the ER and they were telling me like, look, you really have to start. And I was terrified. And they even assigned me to a new oncologist, part of the team that I'd never met, who I ended up loving, thank God. And that's kind of how it started. My first round was 9 days in the hospital. And thankfully, after that, I was able to do outpatient. And by the time I got out, the next day was my brother's proposal. And I was there and everything was okay. And then kind of after that point, it was all internal, me doing the work. And that was my life for a really long time.
Mm. And it sounds like you were quite healthy. It sounds like you were gym regularly, taking care of yourself. So this would have been a really big asteroid or curveball.
Yeah, I actually, I was a healthy one. I would eat healthy. I worked out for honestly as long as I could remember, maybe middle school. And
In
so
your
when they
20s?
told me, yeah, I was young, they told me like, you have cancer. And I was like, what? Like, this is so irrelevant to my life. Like, are you sure? Exactly what you said in the beginning, the things that you think happen to other people. You're sitting in that chair, and I can't believe now I'm the person telling other people, like, I've heard, these perspectives forever, but really, like, you just don't think it can happen to you. And anyway, just back to the doctors, I think just finding a team that was so empowering and mentored me. Like, a friend betrayed me during that time, and they're like, you cannot harbor more anger. Release it, let it go, not your person. Just kind of even put me on this like spiritual path, but I felt empowered. I felt I had tools to work with life when things got heavy. I felt like I'm finally okay being in my own energy. My whole life was spent like, I'll do it if you do it. I'll sign up to tennis if you sign up. Mom, I don't want to go if my friend's not going to be there. Like, I couldn't be alone. And so anyway, I think the person that I am now, how I present myself, is so different than how I used to be, something that I didn't even dream to be. But now it's like, whoa, it's attainable. I'm making baby steps. I notice myself overcoming like objectively big things. And how does that not boost your confidence,
So I need to paint the picture because we're on an audio only podcast, but you talked about having like beautiful blonde hair, being fit and being kind of motivated by status, ego things, acquiring stuff, and you're sitting in front of us and you're not blonde. You now don't have a boyfriend, but you have a husband. So I'm really curious, like, how did your relationship with yourself change? Like, what does it look like now?
It's funny because it's the things that you dream about when they seem so far away, and you make these gradual changes over a few years, and suddenly you're like, oh, this is just me now. That sometimes it's hard to put into words. Like, what? Like, how did I get here? My relationship with myself. I enjoy time alone. I still need my friends. I need socialization, but I enjoy my time alone, which is huge. I meditate and journal. I used to be the person who's like, what do you even journal? Like, what do you say to your journal? And now I'm helping other people with the same kind of questions. And that's like wild to me. I just feel like I have more tools and better equipped to handle adversity. I used to not even put one foot into anything that I wasn't good at. Like the perfectionism hits so hard. And still, I notice it in life. We're always healing layers. And sometimes, you'll get this curveball. Like, I thought I dealt with you already, but here you are again. And as far as my relationship, first and foremost, he's incredible. He's a rock. He's unbothered. He's grounded. He's everything. And I don't know that I could have done it alone, because there were many times through that process that I was like, oh my God, another round. Or like, oh my God, everyone like looking at me in this way again. It's kind of before I'd integrated everything and felt really solid with, where I was at. Towards the end, I felt really ugly. And I just used to tell him, like, thank God I'm not dating anymore, because I would have, like, this would have just been tough. And eventually I didn't care. I rocked it bald. He was so accepting of me. I actually learned how to love and accept myself through him a lot, because I was like, what's that quote? If you haven't seen me at your worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Something like that. It's not like a conscious thought I had or belief I had, but he just really showed me like, wow, I can be not just physically, what I'm proud of, but like angry, like lashing out sometimes, not the nicest, frustrated by my situation, needing help, feeling dependent, even though I'm so used to being independent. Like all these things just really took a hit. And he was just there, unbothered. What else can I help you with? Do you need support? Anything.
I think it's important to reiterate that in this timeline, you're also still dating. You've moved cities and uprooted your life. There's a global pandemic going on.
We're both living in my parents' house.
And then you've moved home.
Yeah.
And then you're living with parents. And one of those things on their own can be really challenging. Global pandemic, challenging. Living at home with your parents as an adult, challenging.
Yeah.
Living together with a new partner, challenging.
Totally. And it was really difficult after running my own business, feeling relatively successful income-wise. Like I was good. I didn't have to ask anybody really for support. I was living on my own. I was in a different state. And suddenly now I'm like the epitome of dependence and home. And, the friends that I just made over the course of a year are not there. I've lost touch kind of with LA people. I have to throw myself into a social scene where people are scared to be around me. They're scared of getting me sick. They don't want to be around me. Mm. And so it was like lonely a lot and frustrating a lot. And, LA was pretty strict with their COVID rules, especially compared to Arizona. And so, whereas I'm like, just let me go to the gym, let me take a walk outside with somebody not yelling at me for a mask or this or that. That was another layer of like, how could this happen to me? Like, I just left a life that when you look at it from the outside was great. She has XYZ things. Isn't that what people look at? They look at all these things, job, relationship, house, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's also important to note, I wasn't really conscious of it at the time, but I was burnt out. I didn't know how to set boundaries. I would panic anytime like a client would send me something. I'm like, oh, I have to be prepared to respond to this. And so it just started becoming more apparent to me, like the dis-ease in my emotional state that could have manifested this. Physically healthy, but emotions, mental, things that you can't see that aren't tangible, I didn't really pay much attention to.
So Chantal, you talked a little bit about your beautiful husband, and you said like he was your rock and he, ride or die through this experience. But like, what was your relationship like at the time of the diagnosis, and what is it like now?
Okay, so our relationship was always strong. I'm not awful, but I owe it a lot to his patience and his flexibility and his, he's honestly like incredible. And I think I wasn't realizing how my sensitivity to life, things that I would maybe get triggered by, things that like when I just wouldn't be satisfied, would be unhappy. It had nothing to do with him, but we're in a relationship and he's my person. And so he also is like upset for me that I'm so easily kind of thrown off my rocker. Right. And so there was that. And we actually just had this conversation yesterday too. He's just really proud of me, how much I've grown. It's really funny. Like if you haven't met him, I'm the person to always say, yeah, but it takes two. Like both people have to do the work. He's kind of one of those people who like got through childhood and life unscathed and just doesn't really have I don't know, things to
Big
work
T,
on.
little T
Like
trauma.
none of it. He's like, oh, well, I trust myself. I can just handle that. Or like if there's a problem, I know that there's a solution. Or things that it actually bothered me sometimes because I was like, I have to do so much work to get to this place, and you're just naturally like this. How is that fair? But I also was so appreciative that I had somebody so grounded by my side. And now I feel like a little more of a match, I guess, in like emotional intelligence or being able to give also and not just be the receiver, and things feel more balanced. But like aside from the support system, which is obviously huge, we're each other's best friend. We're silly. We are like the absolute weirdest and accept each other for that. We're an open book. And I feel like when you can feel safe to be fully yourself and be accepted, and when you can just fully, fully, fully love someone for their weirdest quirks and things they say and whatever it is, like that keeps things fun. I wanted someone that like our inner children could just hang out and play all the time, and it wouldn't have to be serious and heavy and proving ourselves. And so like that has just grown exponentially, which is it's fun. It's amazing to be in that kind of space.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So Chantal, obviously through this journey, you've done a lot of inner work. You've explored a lot of different pathways and a lot of different methodologies and things like that. So what's one of the tools that you've discovered along this journey that you now use and that you kind of implement day to day?
Damn. Oh my God. My life is like, I mean, there's one thing that like really comes to mind, and that's EFT tapping. Stands for emotional freedom technique. It looks kind of funny. I don't know if you guys have ever seen people just like tapping on like different meridian points. Are you guys into that too? You are?
Yes, we've been to a couple of conferences where someone has been done a presentation or a workshop on EFT tapping, and we've heard some incredible stories about like nervous system re-regulation and manifestation and visualization and healing. So yeah, please tell us about your experience.
Yeah. So when I call her my hypnotherapist, but she's everything. She's a healer. She uses EFT. She knows NLP. She's just a lot of stuff going on, Reiki, energy, all the things. But for about 2 years, and still, but now I've moved back to Arizona, so I don't see her as much in person in LA. For about 2 years, every single week, I was seeing this woman who would oscillate between hypnotherapy to kind of go deep and then EFT tapping so that I'm conscious, aware of what I'm repeating. And pretty much how I would use that and how I used to use that and how I still use that now is whenever there was a big emotion coming up, and, typically or I at least, used to just distract, scroll on my phone, call a friend. I couldn't be with it. I really, really couldn't be with it. And I started learning how emotions are just messengers. They just have a message for you. Anger is usually when someone has crossed a boundary. Oh, okay, I understand that. You're like letting me know what is going on inside of my, emotional body. Sadness, real or perceived loss. And when I started understanding like, hey, okay, emotions, they're not bad. We don't always have to strive to be high vibe. We can kind of sit with everything. It was like, okay, there's some message here. There's something to be worked with. It's happening for me. I'm understanding that it's like my body communicating with me. How can I get present to this? And so I would start by usually you're tapping and just going into the pain. It's really uncomfortable when I feel this. I feel like the weight is on my shoulders, and, kind of dive deep into it. Allow yourself to experience it. And after a while, you're kind of like, whoa, maybe that anxiety that was a 10 is now a 4. And then it's tapping again to kind of recite affirmations and reprogram what you do want to believe. And it seems so silly, but time and time again, like this practice has just saved me from wanting to dissociate or project my anger onto other people. And I finally learned to just like be with that. And by no means am I an expert on breath work, but just understanding that slowing down, which like I'm always thinking 10 miles a minute, but slowing down, taking a breath, when we're breathing slowly, deeply, it's kind of signaling to our brain like, oh, we don't have a reason to be anxious. We're not anxious. We're calm. Look at her. She's breathing so slowly and deeply. And when we're kind of, taking these shallow, really quick breaths, the mind thinks, oh, like, notice that we're in anxiety mode. We're in panic mode. And so just being able to manipulate the physical body and to kind of calm down, to ground a little bit, it just helps so much. And it's also like you can look up some YouTube videos. It's free. You don't need a practitioner with you. And so I think these little things that I could do on my own that are free, that, are easily accessible, those things really change the game for me.
I really like that you shared those ones because, you can go on a YouTube spiral of EFT and tapping and, but like you said, that is a totally free, available anytime resource and skill set that you can develop. So there's no special appointment that you need or
100%.
You've got a finger.
You've got
if you have a face and a hand, you're good. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. So, and then to flip on the other side, in terms of your romantic relationship with your husband, tell us what are some of the habits and practices that you've got to keep that relationship fueled up?
So funny. I knew you guys would ask this question, and I'm like, I don't know how conscious some of these things are, but it did get me thinking. I guess one of the rules, quote unquote, that we choose to follow is that we never go to bed upset. He introduced it. I'll give him the credit. Amit, if you're listening. And it really makes a difference. I think I heard you guys talk about this on a podcast too once where, it was your hug. It was the embrace that you guys give every time you see each other or leave one another. And it was so funny because you were saying something, Sammy, about even if we've had this kind of, I don't know, conflict or whatever, we still do that. And it really does break the ice. But sometimes it's so uncomfortable. We're about to go to sleep and time is running out and you have to just make peace and hug and kiss. And sometimes it just ends that grudge, that internal, I've come to learn that that's just wreaking havoc on me internally. It doesn't prove anything for me to stay angry or try to prove my point, but that's definitely something we do. And I will say the past 3 years with me not working and us moving so much and investing in a home and, so grateful that we could do all that stuff, but disposable income has been harder. And so we're not going out as much as we used to, or especially during COVID when that just wasn't available. It's what do you do? And so we end up turning to the things that are just silly. We'll prank each other, we'll tease each other all the time, we'll just play fight, keeping it light, kind of when you used to build a fort when you're a kid and just silly BS, lighthearted. We sometimes have this ritual. I don't know how great it is, but before bed, we're just looking through the DMs that I've sent him throughout the day, which are all just funny reels. And so just humor is a big thing for us, keeps us young, keeps things fun. But yeah, there's nothing heavy.
Yeah, I like the way that you described it earlier about your two inner children connecting and getting to play all day. I think that's such a beautiful image. It's what would Nate's 7-year-old self want to do?
So
what would my
cute.
7-year-old self it's cute. It is. It's cute to think about that. And what would they want to do? What would play and abandon and joy with no adult responsibilities, what would that look like? What silly things would we be doing, and what can we take from that and do now?
Yeah.
But I'm big on that same sort of thing. I'm probably the more playful one in our relationship and sparking that silliness, whether or not it's in the grocery store or cooking dinner or getting ready for a podcast. It can really shift the energy. But so I really like that you've made a focus on embedding the play and joy. Otherwise, it can just get very serious and regimented and logistics and that's not what my fueled up life looks like. My fueled up life is full of joy and play and silliness and laughter and abandon. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you, there's no rules, some things that were off limits as a kid, your mom would tell you don't do that. It's like what? Okay, we could be at the grocery store and I'll just throw him a banana and say, think fast. When I was a kid, my mom would be like, what are you doing? But right now, there's nothing wrong with that. And it keeps things fun. And it's wild for me to think that I'm old enough to be in a relationship that's lasted 9 years. Seriously, I'm how old am I right now? But it makes me think of all those I don't know, I'll just say older couples, like middle-aged couples that would always, I don't know if you guys have heard this advice, but like you have to try to like spice things up, or things will fizzle out with time and you just have to like, stay young and make effort. And I'd be like 1 year into relationships, like, what are you talking about? Like the spice is always there. You're just old. You have no idea what you're saying. And now that we're getting older and there's like real life responsibilities and we're thinking of having kids and, all these things, it's kind of hitting me like, it's so important in the moments, at least for us, that we're having fun and keeping things light, because the second things feel like a have to do or a pressure kind of thing, it's a no-go. And so we'll introduce that kind of playful mentality with like chores around the house. Like the other day we were doing sweeping the floor and gardening and whatever. And so he decided to buy a chainsaw because that was fun for him to like cut up the cacti in our lawn. And, I was blasting music and our dog was just like running around. And it was like these kind of life adulty things that we have to do that sometimes we're like, oh, that just sounds like such a drag. I think if you can find a way to make them fun together, just be silly, like that is the spice. Like you get to stay kind of best friends with this person. At least that's what does it for me. So
yeah.
And we've got a similar practice. We haven't actually done it for a little bit, but we would do a 2-song tidy. So we would both pick like a song in a certain genre. Yeah.
In a category, we'd go like,
category.
Okay, 90s boy band or whatever the category might be.
Yeah, so we would both pick a song, put it on, and then we would have to like blast around the house and clean it as quick as possible.
It's such a good mood changer. Like that's so fun.
Yeah.
And then we would rank each other's songs at the end of it as well and have a winner.
Yeah,
it's competition is always good.
That's it.
And it's always pretty clear, like, oh yeah, you definitely won that category. That was a far better, like, yeah. But it's like taking something that we do need to do as adults to live in a beautiful space that is good for our energy and our health and our well-being. It's like we want to have a space that feels good. How can we make the process of creating that space fun? And, I think it's, is it Murphy's Law that task will expand the time that you give them? It's pretty amazing what we can get done in like the equivalent of 2 songs, like less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas without that container, it could take hours.
Forever. I've been there too. There's definitely times where we're both on our phone, just like, oh, we're not going to do this right now, are we? And it's like, no. But that's part of it too.
So Chantal, we heard a little bit about your brother's proposal, but I would like to hear about yours.
Oh my God. So it was in Israel, and I just got back from Israel a few days ago. So it's funny that, this is all happening now. But this was at the time that Amit was living with me. This was pre-cancer. This was after his college when we were living at my parents' house the first time before we had ever moved to Arizona. And so we went to Israel, and it's a beautiful country and we love visiting, but we have a lot of friends and family there. So a lot of times it just feels really hectic. Like we have to go here and then this city and make sure to see this person. And so, after a while I was telling him like, look, we need a night out. Like I'm tired of the have to do's and I just want to have fun. And he was like, okay. His friend was there. He's like, my friend Liad is going to take care of it. He'll plan a fun night out for next Tuesday. And so I was sitting with Liad and a few other friends getting some late night snack. And Amit left. He told me he went to the ATM. He went to check the venue of the proposal, what would be the proposal. And so I asked Liad and I'm like, hey, so Amit said that you're going to plan something for Tuesday. And I guess he didn't fill him in on that lie. And so he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? Like you didn't plan anything. I was so upset. But long story short, he planned this like rooftop. I don't even know if it's a hotel, but of this building. And it was a whole kind of party. And he got everyone that I love together, friends, family. And I was drinking and we were having fun. And I remember telling him like, babe, it feels like my birthday. Like all these people came, he came, my aunt came, all these people, like, this is awesome. And we're just dancing, have a good time. Everyone was buying me shots. I'm like, whoa, everyone loves me. Like, this is so cool. And so at one point he comes to put his arms around me and, kind of dance. And I'm like, oh my God, babe, like, why are your hands clammy? And I thought it was just like humidity. And so he starts doing something and I'm like, oh, like you're going to propose right now? I was drunk. I was totally lying. Like it wasn't even a thought. And then he does. And I'm just like, I was in shock. The first thing I said, like after a long silence was like, how did you do that? Because we were living together. We were together 24/7, literally up each other's asses all the time at my parents' house. I slept on his lap the whole flight. I was like, when did this happen? Like, I was in shock, absolute shock. Plus, I was like, my mom would have wanted to be here. Like, this is weird. Like, how did you guys get this past me? Anyway, obviously I say yes. And after the fact, we spoke about it. And there were so many times that the surprise almost got busted. And I was right there, but I just had no idea it was happening. And that was it. And I'm so happy it took place in that way. Obviously, it would have been nice for my immediate family to be there, but my close friends, my family in Israel, and one of my favorite places at a rooftop that was beautiful, like such good energy. Definitely a memorable night. So that was really special.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your love story with us.
Of course.
If there's one last tip, trick, tool that you'd like to share with couples or people to help them keep either their relationship with their self or their chosen person fueled up, what would it be?
Okay, I'll share something, I guess a little bit general. It can be applied to romantic, personal, anything. But it's one of the things that I learned in NLP, one of the kind of foundational things that changed my perspective on a lot of how I speak to myself, how I speak to other people, how I speak about the things that I want or have. And it's just the power of your word. And so one person, let's say, and also, your subconscious beliefs, the thoughts that you think over and over and over become your beliefs. And so whatever you repeat, that's, what we get more of. You talk about your struggles all the time, that's what you experience. You talk about the blessings in your life, you have more reasons to feel grateful. And so there's this really kind of simple example that I like to use of this one guy who tells himself every single day that he is not a lucky person. He's not lucky. I'm not lucky. So every time he, doesn't get a parking spot he wanted, see, I'm not lucky. Anytime somebody he knows wins the lottery and he doesn't, see, I'm not lucky. And he starts finding all of these like proofs that he's not a lucky guy. Fair enough. Maybe he finds $100 bill on the floor or a $1 bill on the floor and he says, I'm not lucky. It would have been really lucky if that was $100 bill. And then there's somebody else who feels like they're really lucky. And so they might not find, the closest parking to the gym, but it's in the shade. And they're like, wow, I'm so lucky. They might find the $1 bill and say, whoa, I'm so lucky. Look at this. And what happens in the mind is pretty much anything that you focus on, your brain is now looking for evidence to support that belief, to support that. Say you're looking for like a red car. Maybe you don't really notice red cars that much, but suddenly you're on the hunt for a red car, you're shopping for it, you see it everywhere. So your mind is just going to pick up on things that prove your beliefs, that support what you're thinking about all the time. And so how I see this play out with some of my clients in relationship is constantly focusing on what we don't want. I don't want to be single. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be sick. I don't want to, all these things. But you're not giving your subconscious mind a picture to move towards. You're not giving it a target. You're telling it what you don't want. And so you're just, kind of attracting more of that. But what if you told yourself, I would love to be in a loving relationship where I'm not afraid to express my emotions and I can set boundaries and I feel respected. Oh, cool. Now we're like creating this vision, this map for our mind to be like, okay, let's go in that direction. What if it was like, I do want to have a successful business that brings this much income and this is what it feels like for me to like live that business every day. So those are the things that kind of, again, free tools. So I love giving that out. But I think the more conscious we are about the way we speak to ourselves and the emotions that we're practicing and the thoughts that we're practicing and the beliefs that we're practicing, we kind of start noticing how the universe and other people respond back to that. And I think it empowers a lot of people to realize like, oh, hey, I can kind of go first. I can be the one to say, hey, brain, like this is the picture. I want to move towards that. And, granted, I'll take aligned action too, but your thoughts and beliefs are the basis for everything. And so I would think a lot of, the people here listening to this podcast, they either want better relationship with self, a really tight relationship with a beautiful romantic partner, whatever that looks like for them. So just start focusing on what does that look like? If it's actually a lot of times we get stuck with like, I know what I don't want. I don't know what I want. So flip it. If you don't want, ask yourself, like, I don't want to be single. Okay. If you don't want to be single, what does that ideal relationship look like? If you don't want to be lonely, what does quality companionship feel and look like for you? And I think just the more we practice that, the more those become our thoughts, those become our experiences. That becomes like our live, reality, pretty much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's the difference between like, what do I want to move towards versus like, what do I want to move away from? And you kind of need to know where am I going? What do I want to do in this life, in this relationship, in this partnership? What is it that we're co-creating here, or what is it that I'm creating for myself? So thank you for sharing that. To say thank you, we've actually provided a sports program for a month to some young adults in India. This program's looked after by a Dream, and it ensures like healthy lives and promotes well-being for children of all ages. And they use this as a vehicle to teach young adults some really great life skills as well. So that's been made possible via our partnership with Buy One, Give One. So thank you so much for being here and making that possible.
I love that. Of course. Thank you guys.
Oh, no worries. So Chantal, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about your story, how can they do that?
So I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is Elevate with Chantal, and I think the spelling will be somewhere of my name. Instagram is it for now. I am launching a new program soon, and so that's the first place that I'm going to be talking about it. But we'll see. Threads, podcasts, things coming soon. So
Awesome.
So what's the program that you're about to launch?
So I am still in the works of this program. It doesn't have a name, but just looking at all the transitions that I've experienced in my life, especially in the past 3 years or so, how much change that I've overcome, how much uncertainty that I've leaned into, kind of took everything that I've learned and all the places I felt really stuck. And I created this challenge where every single day, it's going to be a group program. Every single day, there's going to be some kind of live guided video where we're going to lean into our edges together, kind of make it fun. So say you have, I don't know, the fear of failure is always keeping you back. We're going to have a homework assignment to go and fail. Go out there, make a big ask, get rejected. Go do something that's really outside of your comfort zone, where this is kind of your playground to practice. So when, you're confronted by change, you're confronted by, big goals, always feels a little bit scary as we're like leaning into that next level self, that we feel practiced in meeting those edges, in feeling like, hey, it's safe to, ground, expand. I don't have to go back into my shell and, self-sabotage and be upset and then kind of downward spiral. So that is still in the works. But I wanted to leave all of your listeners, viewers, with a 20% off discount for when I launch using the code DATEFOREVER.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And how can they get it? Just jump on your social and follow the links.
Yes, everything is going to be launching via Instagram. You can always DM me if you don't see something up there. But that's kind of my hub.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's a really generous gift.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.